What is a great job? And I'm not talking about somebody saying, hey, you did a good job. I'm talking about a actual job, right? What are the concepts and what are the three key things that make a job worth having? I've asked myself this question for a long time, and it's an important question because I just graduated from college. And if you didn't know, the current job market for college graduates, especially for those in engineering and in CS, it's a little bit difficult right now. There's a lack of jobs, there is a lot of ghost jobs, fake jobs, and the sentiment around a lot of software workers and just software engineers in general and just people who do computer science, engineering, whatever, is that they're cooked. And honestly, in my opinion, yes and no. It is probably difficult, more difficult now more than ever to get a job in the software development field, but I also believe there's opportunity out there and that, it's possible to get a job, guys, right? The question is, what's a dream job and what are the three things that make up a dream job and why is it important to understand these things, right? There's a scarcity mindset that you get when you come out of college. It's that if you don't get a job immediately, you're probably going to fail or there's probably going to be nothing left for you by the end of the time that you find a job. And honestly, I do think it's important to kind of focus and set yourself up for success in the future by doing internships during your college experience and like having as much networking opportunity as possible and just talking and meeting with people to see if you can secure a role. But it also isn't the end of the world if you can't find a job exactly right out of school. If you had the option, right, what would be the dream job for you? And how can you actually understand what the three most important things of a dream job are and why they are the three most important things? So I read this book recently called So Good They Can't Ignore You. And the way that this guy talks about the ideas and the requirements for a good job and for like an actual meaningful existence at work it's pretty awesome. I think that he speaks a lot about really interesting stuff and he puts into perspective the actual things you need in order to succeed, in order to find fulfillment in the job in the work that you do. So he talks about this thing called career capital. And career capital, according to the book, is essentially just skills, right? Skills that make you valuable. And this is going to be essentially the bottom line to all my things I'm saying. I'm going to talk about this later, but just keep that in the back of your mind. Career capital and skills, right? So let's break it down. What are the three things that are the most important to most people when it comes to working a dream job? For me, I'm an engineer. I love fixing things. I love solving problems, right? And so that's where creativity comes in for me. Being able to be creative and being able to actively put out solutions that are my own and came from the back of my own head is something that I think is really lacking in a lot of roles. And it's something that you will kind of tire yourself out looking for, right? I believe that creativity and being able to be creative is a kind of difficult thing to have in a very corporate company, in a place where there's like a lot of structure, a lot of rigidity, but like that's okay because it doesn't mean that the job's completely imperfect. Again, we're talking about dream jobs, right? So if you want a less rigid structure, start your own company, do your own thing, or work at a place with a little bit more lax like company culture, and I'm sure that like you'll be able to be more creative and stuff like that. But creativity is a huge part of what makes a job so great. Being able to exercise your creative brain, your creative muscles, and put out into the world the things that you have just gives you a sense of autonomy that like nothing else does, right? Have you ever like painted something in kindergarten or in first grade and you're like, it's not perfect, but like I made it and like that makes me happy, and just being able to see that and like experience that is something that like doesn't go away. So when you're working that full-time job, you're actually at a role where you're like putting in effort to complete a project or get something done. Like once you actually push that thing out and you see the results of your effort, and it's like my creative mind came up with those solutions and was the thing that got this project moving along, like it feels really good. So a job that allows you to be creative thereby makes it a job that's like a great job, right? And an example of this would be being a YouTuber, doing any sort of social media, working at a marketing company where you can come up with your own marketing designs, or working at an engineering company where you can come up with your own engineering designs and create things. I remember when I worked at Johnson & Johnson, I was able to actually come up with a bunch of my own solutions to a new product we were developing, and like that was a part of my actual interview process where I had to like design something and see if I could create something that would actually help like the company and the project move along. So like don't think that creativity isn't an important part of the job experience and the workforce. It is, and it's something that people really want and people really need. And so I really think that this kind of works back into the skills portion of it, right? Career capital and skills. in order to be a creative person, in order to actually use those creative muscles that you have, you need to have a lot of practice. And you need to do that by doing things outside of work so that when you get inside of work, you can use the stuff that you learned outside of work to make projects and make things that actually genuinely make you satisfied, right? So let's say you're a painter on the outside and you're really good at typography and stuff like that. And you're like, you have a lot of experience doing it on the outside because you run your own blog or something like that. The next time you send an email to a client or something like that and you use that specific typography that is going to convince them to like purchase something or like be the new customer for you or something like that, it's going to feel really good. So creativity is one of the most important facets for working at a dream job or just having a dream job in general. So let's talk about 2, right? Control. Control is autonomy. Being able to say to yourself, no matter what I do, like it is my own choice and my own volition, and I don't have to listen to other people, or I don't have to bow down to my manager, bow down to my boss, bow down to the corporation, right? It's like that sense of control is something that is really important. It is another thing that makes a job worth having. In my opinion, too little or too much control can be a bad thing. I'll give you an example. Let's say you work in Japan and your hours are like 60 plus hours a week. You have to do overtime and like your boss is like always there staying late, and like you have to, because you have to like abide by the cultural and social norms there, you have to stay late as well, right? And you want to go home, you have kids, you have a family, and you want to like experience your life outside of work. Well, you can't because you lack control in this current situation that you have, right? That's a bad example of too little control, right? But now let's say that you work at a startup, right? So you work at a startup and your boss essentially is just like, okay, you work on this and we just need to get something out by the end of quarter 3, right? And it has to be amazing, it has to be great, right? So you have all the control in the world and you are the only person working on one feature, and you have to push that feature out by the end of quarter 3, and it's already halfway quarter 2. It's like you have all the control there and you are the only person that company is relying on in order to get that thing done. Some people fold with that pressure. Some people fold with that control. Sometimes you need a rigid structure to help you get through the task that you're actually trying to get through, because if you don't have this rigid structure, if you don't have the ability to actually get stuff done in a systematic way, it's going to be a lot more difficult than you might think. And sometimes too much control can be a bad thing. Even worse, let's say that you are somebody who has been given all the control in that startup again, but you're not being compensated correctly for your actual efforts. So you're one of the main software developers for the company, you're working your ass off, you're staying late, and you're grinding to get that thing done, but you don't have any equity in the company. You are given all the control, but you're not given enough of the reward. You're not given enough of the compensation for your effort. That's another thing you have to be careful about, right? So there's like a perfect balance here that makes a job great, and that's being able to control your outcomes while also being able to control your hours, right? And that again comes down to having career capital. It's going to be a point that I'm going to be saying a lot, right? You need to have skills that make you so valuable that companies want and need you and you don't need them. And the only way to do that is by accomplishing remarkable things, right? So it's like, let's say that you are working at a company and you are given a lot of control over one project and you get it done super fast, to the point where it's like you got it done so fast that you made our company more efficient, you saved billions or millions of dollars with your new project or whatever, right? And they're like, okay, we're going to promote you, right? And you're like, okay, I'll take the promotion, but I'll also take a 4-day work week. And they're like, what? A 4-day work week? Are you crazy? Then you're like, yeah, because this thing can only run with me because I'm the one who made it, and you know that I saved you millions and billions of dollars. And this 2%, 3% pay raise or whatever you're going to give me for my new promotion is not going to be worth it, or it's not going to be enough to compensate the amount of effort that I put into this project. And you know what they're going to have to say to that? They're going to have to say yes, because you have the career capital. You have the ability to say no and like, this is what I want instead, and negotiate and be somebody with control in their own environment. And so like, I know this doesn't happen often and it sounds like a crazy thing to say, but like, guys, if you are actually skilled enough to put out things that save the company money, make changes and make differences to your environment and to the company around you, people will notice that and people will appreciate it. Like, you saving people money, you making it so that the shareholders are happy or whatever, right? It's really important. If you're going to work on something, Work on something to the best of your ability. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Don't sacrifice your life for it, obviously, but do the best you can. Put out a good effort and build that career capital. Build the skills you need in order to actually say to yourself, I have control of the situation, and no matter what happens, I'll be okay, because if I can do this at one company, I can do this at another one. And another thing, I think that this is the thing that we all kind of care about and all kind of think about the first time we think of a good job is the impact, right? So it's like becoming a doctor, becoming a volunteer, or like a veterinarian or something like that. It's like, I want to save lives, or I want to help people, or I want to do something in some way. Impact is something that's super important to people when it comes to having a dream job, because if you're not affecting the environment around you, then you're going to be asking yourself, what am I even doing? If you're working for a company that actively hurts people, like an insurance company or like a banking company or something like that, right, where you're genuinely like harming your customer and not providing a good service, you automatically are going to be dissatisfied with your job. I recently watched a Lewis Rossman video about this, where the insurance company would essentially like give out insurance claims and help people get to their insurance or whatever, right? They would sell them the package and stuff like that, and then they would literally block the number of the person they called and sold the insurance to, so that that person could not contact the salesman again and get an answer as to why their product wasn't working, right? So like stuff like that, right? That automatically is going to make you hate your job, because you know the impact you're having is negative, right? So a good job has a positive impact where you see that you're positively affecting things in your life and in other people's lives, and you're gaining a sense of value from that, right? I'm gonna give you an example. My dad's a plumber, and I've worked with him, and I've like been a plumber before for a little bit, right? So like being a plumber, being somebody who helps people in a very dire time of need is a very impactful skill. It's a very impactful job, because you can tell the situation that they're in is usually pretty dire, right? Somebody's basement's flooded, their sink is clogged when they're having a family party. People need these things in order to survive, in order to not only like exist like in the world today, but in order to like support and provide for the family, right? Having a running toilet, having a running sink, this stuff is necessary in order to be happy and to like be calm, right? And so being the person that fixes that, being the person that provides that service, that in itself is a huge and impactful like resource and role that you can play in your life, and it will make you feel like you're working a great job. It'll give you and bring you great satisfaction, right? So don't think about these roles and don't think about these jobs as being like, well, if I just make the most amount of money, if I just have the most amount of financial compensation, I will be the most satisfied. Yes, you might enjoy the whatever $200,000, $250,000, like that's a lot of money, right? Of course it is. But if you really think about it, if you really go down to like what will make you the most valuable person, the most happiest when you're working at a role, it's these three things. It's control, impact, and creativity, right? Money and being able to make money is important within all these three, but it really depends what type of person you are in order to get these three things and also get compensated while you're at it, right? So it's like my goal is essentially to purchase a home one day, and I know that I need to be compensated pretty well in order to do that within the next 2 years. And being able to work at a place where I'm like have control, have creativity, and have impact is like really important to me. But I also understand that being able to get paid for the skills that I have is also important to me as well. So I want to work as a YouTuber full time. I want to, go become a plumber, and I want to become an artist all at the same time, right? These are all fun things, but I know the best way to get to my goal of purchasing a home is probably through getting a job at an engineering firm, or working as a biomedical engineer, or doing something where I'm getting paid for the education that I got and the skills that I have. Again, this all goes back to the bottom line. You have to have skills that are too valuable to ignore, because if you have no skills, you will not get hired, you will not be valuable, and you will not bring any sort of value to the company. The whole point of you working at a company is to make somebody else's life easier, to make money for somebody else, or make money for yourself, you know what I mean? You can't ask for more if you aren't providing more. You need to put your foot down when you have the proof, when you have written down in writing your ability that you accomplished this thing and that this thing got done, and every single weekly report you send in is on time, and like every single assignment that you've completed has some sort of progress and everything's being tracked. You need to track these things, because if you don't, you are setting yourself up to not be recognized, for people to be like, oh yeah, didn't you work on that project? It's not working now. Like that was your fault, right? Like why isn't this? It's like, no, I actually gave this part to this guy and this guy did this, and you need to have all the receipts. You need to have all the proof, because if you don't, you are going to fall behind. You're going to set yourself up for failure. And it's obviously not the end of the world either way, guys, right? Like a dream job is something that a lot of people strive for, but a lot of people don't have. Some people treat work as work, some people treat work as like their career, and some people treat work as their life, right? And it's for anybody and for everybody, it's like different per situation. But I think what's most important is, again, these three things: control, impact, and creativity. So if you agree with me and you feel like you need a role or you need a job that needs and fulfills these three things and balances these three things out, please tell me what that job is below. Because finding a perfect dream job is not easy, because you have to be working that job in order to actually enjoy that job, right? And then this is the next part I'm going to talk about: quitting your job and when you know it's time to quit. So the first part was like, okay, you are looking for a job, you just graduated college, or you're in college and you're trying to find something. The second part is going to talk about whether or not it's worth quitting your job. And this is a topic that I hear a lot of people talk about, especially in the social media space, especially in the creator space. Like, you've probably heard like, quit your job, follow your passions, do the thing you need to do, right? But you need to go back to the basics. You need skills before you do anything, right? If you plan, let's say, on quitting your job, traveling the world, and experiencing new things, and just like trying out everything, and eating a bunch of food, and just exploring the world and exploring yourself, you can do that and do whatever you want, right? But if you want to set a foundation for yourself and have something to come back to after that vacation, after all that time you spend vacationing or enjoying your life, you need to first have skills that allow you to create an amount of capital to store and to make money while you're away. It doesn't have to be a lot, but it has to be something. I think that not enough people kind of like think about the bare minimum type of financial responsibility that they have to themselves, because they believe that other people's goodwill and other people's successes will like pay them back, right? This is especially the case if you have rich parents or somebody who's gonna like support you, or like a husband or something like that who's gonna help you out with rent or something like that. Like, that's completely okay. Again, this is not me preaching, this is just me explaining what my perspective is and how I feel about the topic. If you want to do that stuff, if you want to explore the world, vacation, do whatever you want, take breaks, you can do that as much as you want, but make sure that you have the money to do that and you are being smart about your options and your financial like advances in life. Because the most important thing, not even with like skills and stuff like that, this kind of like builds into it, but it's understanding the power of compound interest and understanding that the earlier that you invest, the more that you will make in the future. And that maybe it sucks to suffer a little bit now, to work a little bit through the summers, not vacation as much, but trust me, the effort that you're putting in today is going to pay off 100 times, 1,000 times in the future, because literally the richest and the most famous people in the world all believe and all utilize compound wealth to their advantage. There are very rare cases in which people strike gold and become a millionaire immediately, right? You have these YouTubers, TikTokers who like become successful and are somebody who, eventually blows up and just like off of one video and does the thing, whatever, right? But there's also a lot of people who blow up who have been doing the same thing for the past 2 years or the past 18 months, or just been like grinding consistently, posting 3 to 5 videos, posting weekly, or like just creating content and continuously making things and doing things with their life, right? So it's like, you may hate your job, you may want to vacation, you may want to leave everything, right? But do you have the skills and do you have the ability to support yourself after you come back, after you're done exploring and doing everything and like living your life? And like, do you actually want that? Because it's a choice. It's a choice to go out and do the thing that you want to do. And if you feel so trapped and you feel so stuck, you need to like reconsider what makes your job worth having, or why you're even doing this and why you're even working in the first place. Like, you have to survive. You have to build something for yourself, because if you don't, you might have nothing by the end of it. You do not want to be working at Walmart by the time you're 80. I met a woman the other day who was 83, still working at ShopRite, and she seemed really tired. And I felt really bad. I was like ready to bag my own groceries, because I went to the grocery counter and it was just like, it's Thanksgiving. It's the day before Thanksgiving, and this poor woman is still bagging groceries. And I don't know if she was like enjoying her job, having a good time, whatever, but it was like, this woman should be at home spending time relaxing with her family. Or if, she wants to work, she can do that as well. But in my perspective, it was just like, I just felt bad, because it happens to a lot of people. People rack up credit card debt. People rack up high interest like loans and aren't able to pay them back. People just forget that the way that compound interest works, it works in both ways. If you have some sort of debt, if you have something that you need to pay off, it will continuously grow and accumulate until you can never afford to pay it off ever. And people will tell you need debt. You need to be able to utilize debt to your advantage. But you need to pay off everything first in order to plunge yourself into that debt and understand that you have the skills and the knowledge to pull yourself out of it. And that like any action that you take, anything that you do, you will be fine in the end and in the long run, right? And do you have the skills and the willpower to be able to do that? Do you have the ability to sacrifice now and to say to yourself, no matter what happens, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to purchase this $400,000 home, pay $3,000 a month for it, rent it out to random tenants and like survive off of hopefully them paying me rent on time and like maybe if the place falls apart, they won't pay the rent and it's like, oh, I'm screwed. It's like, no, you can't believe that. You have to have the skills. You have to have the career capital, be able to say to yourself that like, I'm going to be able to do this and like no matter what happens, I'm going to be okay. And that goes back to you hating your job, right? It's like, do you have the ability to just say to yourself, no matter what happens here, I'm going to be okay and I'm going to be successful, even if I do quit my job because I hate it that much. I hate the people I work with. I don't feel like I'm actually helping or doing good for society. And like, I'm not making enough money, right? I'm not being compensated correctly for my actions. Like, those are the three things I would say you need to look out for your job, right? If you genuinely are like afflicted and taunted and like harmed by the people you work with, you should probably switch your job. But first you should write down everything, have everything in writing, make sure that you have proof, understand that what you're doing is a very you do not deserve any sort of harassment or punishment or whatsoever for the actions that you're doing at work unless they're hurting somebody, right? So it's like, write down every transaction that's occurring, make sure you have a record and a log of everything that goes on. And secondly, like, ask yourself if you're actually doing work that is impactful and you actually like love and enjoy the thing that you're doing. Not so much that like, oh, I enjoy it, it's like the best thing ever, like I love coding. It's like, no, it's like, do you actually like enjoy the process of solving a problem? Are you actually like getting value out of it? Are you learning something that you can apply and grow into a career, right? It's like a dead-end job would be like becoming a technician or somebody who just does like ultrasound or something like that, right? Like, that's like it. Once you become the top level technician, there's no room for growth. So it's like, if you can't find room for growth, you need to reconsider the role that you have, because you basically just lost all your control. You're at the top of the hill, but there's like more hills to be climbed. There's more places to go, and it's difficult for you to find that and to understand that. But once you reach that point, you're going to need to ask yourself like, okay, what do I need to do in order to get out of this? And the thing that you have to do to get out of it is to actually have that career capital, actually have that growth and that growth mindset, and know that whatever you do, you will be successful. And so I'm not telling you to quit your job. I'm not telling you to go find a new job. I'm telling you that there are three things that make a job great. It's control, impact, and the ability to be creative. If you have these three things, if you create your own ecosystem in which you can do these three things and you can actually give yourself the confidence and the ability to do these three things, I promise you, you'll enjoy your work more and you will find satisfaction out of it. Do not give up everything. Do not quit. Do not lose your opportunity to build wealth as early as possible, because once the time is gone, the time is gone, right? In the short run, it might be more fun to go visit, Japan, Belize, wherever you want to go to, explore the world, do whatever. But if you don't put a foundation down first, if you don't have something that's building you wealth slowly in the beginning, I promise you it's going to be so much more difficult in order to be successful in the future. It's human nature to want to do these things, to want to do these crazy things, to go out and explore the world, but quell your desires, quell your craving for new, exciting things, and actually ask yourself what you want. And the three things that I want, and the three things I think that you're going to want when you're wanting a great job or want to work at something where you place, is again, control, impact, and creativity. And I'm hitting those again because I'm not trying to convince you to quit your job. Just do things that actually give you those three things. Do things on the side, have hobbies, have friends, meet people, and have people who love you, and you got this. All right? Don't quit your job because I didn't say so. I'm saying find those three things in your work currently, or find a place where you can express those three things and you'll be fine. This is Matt from the Live Company. Hope you learned something, and have a nice day. Peace.